Hi everyone, welcome back to Tax Tutoring and Training. My name's Hannah, and today's lesson is on unique filing situations, specifically in the case where the client you're working with is not a U.S. citizen. And with that, let's get started. So, when you're doing the interview and intake process with the client as a VITA intern, you're going to be filling out the intake and interview sheet. And when you're interviewing the taxpayer, if they check no for the box asking if they're a U.S. citizen, you must determine if the person can be treated as a resident alien or a non-resident alien. If they can be treated as a resident alien, you as a VITA intern are eligible to prepare their tax return. If they are treated as a non-resident alien, then it is out of scope for the VITA program, and you should advise the client to seek help from a professional tax preparer. So, how do we identify if the person is a resident or non-resident alien? Well, to be a resident alien, you have to pass one of the two tests, and the two tests being the green card test or the substantial presence test. So, the green card test. Do they have a green card? This is relatively straightforward. If they're here lawfully in the country on work, they usually have a green card. And if they're a lawful permanent resident at any time, they will usually have a green card. Most green card holders will have valid social security numbers. Sorry, that got cut off a little bit on the slide. But they will usually have valid social security numbers that can be used as a taxpayer identification number to prepare their return. The second test is the substantial presence test. And this is basically how often they were actually physically present in the US. So, to do this, to qualify for this test, the person who you're determining if they're a resident or non-resident alien must have stayed at least 31 days in the US during the current year, and a total of 183 days over the past 3 years. And this is calculated using a formula. So you're not just adding them all up. So for the current year, basically, so it's kind of a sum of all 3 years, but it's also a formula. So you take the sum of all the days that the person was physically present in the current year, in the current tax year. So say your client was in the US without a green card for 30 days this tax year. Then you take 1/3, and then you add that to 1/3 of the days they were present in the preceding year. So the year before that. So if this year is 2024 and they were here 30 days this year, then you add that to 1/3 of the days they were here last year in 2023. So your client's here 30 days this year and they were here 30 days last year, meaning you'd add 30 plus 10 because 1/3 of 30 is 10. So then they were here 40 days. And then you'd add 1/6 of the days they were present in the year before that. So then you'd add 1/6 of the days they were present in 2022. So say they were here 60 days in 2022, then you would add 10 more days. And that means they were here for a total of 50 days. And that is less than the 183-day threshold that this presence test allows. So if it's less, then they are considered a non-resident alien. But if it's more than 183 days, then they are considered a resident alien and you can prepare their tax return. So, what counts as days of presence? And this is pretty self-explanatory. It's any day that a person is physically present in the United States at any time during the day. And this does not include travel days. So if you're flying from the US to Poland, you are not going to count that as a days of physical presence because it's a travel day. So, some of the exempt individuals to this test are foreign and government-related individuals, teachers or trainees, students, or professional athletes. So these are some people that are coming in and out of the United States who can be treated as resident aliens, even though they might not have qualified for the substantial presence test. So what if a non-resident alien meets the substantial presence test? So this means that they're qualified as a resident alien for tax purposes, meaning that you can prepare their income tax return as a VITA intern. So, not often, but sometimes you're going to have U.S. citizens who are married to non-resident alien spouses. and these non-resident alien spouses don't meet the green card test or the substantial presence test, meaning that they themselves couldn't file a tax return alone. However, if you're preparing the tax return for the U.S. citizen, you can claim them as one of three filing statuses only. You can claim them as married filing separately, married filing jointly, or head of household, depending on which they qualify. So, for married filing separately, this would mean that the U.S. citizen that you're preparing for and their non-resident alien spouse did not agree to file a joint filed return. So you can only prepare the U.S. citizen's married filing separately return. You would then advise the non-resident alien spouse to go to a professional tax preparer because that's out of scope for VITA interns. If the U.S. citizen and their non-resident alien spouse wanted to file a joint return, you could do them jointly, and you would then treat the non-resident alien spouse as a resident alien spouse for tax purposes, and you would be able to file their joint return. The third status that the U.S. citizen could claim is the head of household status. And this would mean they meet all the rules for the head of household filing status. And if you don't remember those, go watch my video on filing statuses on my channel, and that should clarify most of the rules. But the only caveat to this is the U.S. citizen who, if they decide to take the head of household filing status, then the non-resident alien spouse, they're not treated as married, they are treated as unmarried. So, going into more depth, in order to claim this head of household filing status, if you are the U.S. citizen marrying a non-resident alien spouse, is that the U.S. citizen or resident alien is a U.S. citizen or resident alien for the entire tax year. The non-resident alien also must choose not to file the joint return, because if you both choose to file the joint return, you would file married filing jointly together, and that would give you the lowest tax bracket, meaning you'd be taxed at the least amount of rate. So you as a VITA intern would incline them to take that filing status. And then another following standard that must be met if the U.S. taxpayer is going to take the head of household filing status is that the taxpayer must meet all other requirements for the status. Again, go see my filing statuses lesson. I'll be sure to help clarify any questions about who qualifies as a head of household. And finally, the non-resident alien spouse is not a qualifying person for the head of household purposes, meaning that the U.S. citizen or U.S. resident alien must have a qualifying person to be head of household. And we went over this. This could be a qualifying child, for example, but the spouse that is a non-resident alien does not count as the qualifying person for this filing status. So with that, we ask the question, can a taxpayer claim a non-resident alien spouse as a dependent? If you don't know what a dependent is, go see my dependents lesson. We go into more detail on what is a dependent, but basically a dependent is a qualifying child or a qualifying relative. But a taxpayer's non-resident alien spouse does not meet the relationship test to be either a qualifying child or a qualifying relative, meaning they are not a dependent. Can a child born overseas be claimed as a dependent to a U.S. citizen? This is a question often asked, but yes, the child born overseas to a U.S. citizen is considered a U.S. citizen for tax purposes and can be claimed as a dependent. So if you are a U.S. citizen and you have a child abroad, that child is automatically a U.S. citizen by blood, meaning that yes, they can be claimed as a dependent on the tax return. But in order to file the return with them as a dependent, you must have a tax identification number for them, meaning either a social security number, an ITIN, or an ATIN. And this also goes with if you adopt a child overseas. So if you're a U.S. citizen and you adopt a child and you care for them, you can still claim them as a dependent even though they're not originally a U.S. citizen. You'd go through the paperwork and you'd get them an adoption tax identification number or an ATIN, and that would be used to file the return and claim them as a dependent on their return. Thanks for listening, guys. If you have any questions, please comment down below. But that this video covers unique filing situations that you might see as a VITA volunteer. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.